Doubling down, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange insists that Russia had zero involvement in the emails leaked during the election.
Julian Assange, a controversial founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks, claims the Obama administration is trying to delegitimize the election of Donald Trump. In an exclusive interview inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where Assange is staying, he tells Fox News' Sean Hannity that Russia is not the source for hacking the emails of the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta.
You did not get this information about the DNC, John Podesta's emails. Can you tell the American people 1,000% you did not get it from Russia or anybody associated with Russia?
We can say, we have said repeatedly over the last 2 months that our source is not the Russian government and it is not a state party.
Throughout the presidential election, WikiLeaks released emails that embarrassed the Clinton campaign and the Democratic Party. Assange disputing the Obama administration's claims that Russia was involved.
Our publications had wide uptake by the American people. They are all true, but that's not the allegation that is being presented by the Obama White House. So why such a dramatic response? Well, the reason is obvious. They're trying to delegitimize the Trump administration as it goes into the White House. They are trying to say that President-elect Trump is not a legitimate president.
Tonight, Trump focused on 2 American automakers. The president-elect calling out General Motors this morning on Twitter, claiming the company makes its Chevy Cruze in Mexico and sells it here. Warning, make in USA or pay big border tax. GM shares immediately dropping before rebounding. The company pushing back that all Chevrolet Cruze sedans sold in the U.S. are built in GM's assembly plant in Lordstown, Ohio, adding a small number of Mexican-made Cruze hatchbacks are sold here. Meantime, Trump sharing a positive call today with Ford about its future after challenging the car maker on the campaign trail.
Now Ford is moving all of its small car production to Mexico. Isn't that wonderful? They're building the biggest plants in the world in Mexico.
Carmaker Ford announced Tuesday that it's scrapping plans to build a $1.6 billion auto plant in Mexico. Instead, it will bring those jobs back home. Ford will invest $700 million into plants which already exist, many of them in the Rust Belt, creating hundreds of new jobs.
We're also encouraged by the pro-growth policies that President-elect Trump and the new Congress have indicated that they will pursue. And we believe that these tax and regulatory reforms are critically important to boost U.S. competitiveness and, of course, drive a resurgence in American manufacturing and high-tech innovation. Now, all of these factors, coupled with segmentation shifts that we're seeing in the marketplace, and our effort, of course, to fully utilize the capacity at existing facilities, have prompted us, obviously, to invest in Flat Rock's expansion and to cancel building a new plant in Mexico.
President-elect Donald Trump gets to nominate someone to be a Supreme Court justice. It's been rumored that he's been eyeing elected Attorney General of Alabama, William Pryor. Pryor is a constitutional conservative. He is vocally against Roe v. Wade. He has been quoted as saying it's the worst abomination of constitutional law in our history. Trump has also been looking at Dianne Sykes, who's a former justice of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. She is also a conservative who has supported a Christian legal group who is against homosexuality.
Early in his campaign, Donald Trump sent a clear signal to evangelicals.
One of the early things, one of the absolute first things I'm going to do is work on totally knocking out the Johnson Amendment.
A controversial law used to restrict pastors' political speech from the pulpit. Congressman Walter Jones has moved to overturn it each year since 2001, after he noticed the IRS monitoring people of faith during the 2000 election.
It's kind of like Big Brother listening to what the minister or priest or rabbi might be saying in this situation.
He began to hear stories of churches being challenged by the amendment and afraid of losing their tax-exempt status.
All the complaints never actually come from within the church. It's from somebody outside the church.
Other critics like Jay Sekulow believe the amendment threatens freedom of speech.
The Johnson Amendment basically was a muzzle on the First Amendment rights of churches.
2 other House members are also trying to change the law. These efforts give advocates hope that the Trump administration will return free speech rights to churches and other nonprofits.
2017 is going to be the year it goes.
Just behind me are the walls of the old city, and right now, according to Resolution 2334, that this is occupied Palestinian terror. And beyond those walls are 3,000 years of Jewish history and faith. It's the Western Wall. It's the city of David. It's where the Temple Mount, where the first and second temple were. And right now you have Jerusalem basically to be divided. And in the eyes of the international community, this is occupied Palestinian territory, and now it's divided that. And I know you said yesterday during the CBN New Year's Day prayer meeting, quoting from Joel 3, that he said that God himself would enter into judgment in the nations because they divided his land.
I am very pro-Israel. I've always been pro-Israel.
What are President Donald Trump's prospects for peace in the Middle East? Can he do what no president has done in the last 50 years and bring about an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and a two-state solution? He certainly said he'd like to try. He's even called it, quote, the ultimate deal, suggesting his Jewish son-in-law, Jared Kushner, might be the one to do it. President Barack Obama tried. There were negotiations the Obama administration led in 2010 by then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and then again 4 years later under Secretary of State John Kerry. Both rounds of negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians fell apart, with finger-pointing and both sides blaming each other. Can Trump do any better? Well, he's said that a UN Security Council resolution passed a month before his term condemning settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem would make it harder to negotiate peace, but he said he'll get it done anyway. He's made promises. He's promised to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Though Israelis have lauded and praised that decision or that promise, Palestinians have condemned it, calling it the death of a two-state solution. Will Trump fare any better than his predecessors?
An earthquake near Sydney has shaken the city's southwest suburbs.
In the middle of the day, this quake might have gone unnoticed, but at 1:15 in the morning, it gave people in Appin quite a jolt.
Real sudden thud and a bit of a shake in the house.
My husband thought I fell out from the bed.
It was felt up to 50 kilometres away, places like Campbelltown and Wollongong. Geoscience Australia registered a shallow quake, magnitude 3.8, very minor.
I was kind of thinking, was that an earthquake? Then I was like, no, it can't be.
But still quite exciting.
I'd say we've got in excess of 200 reports come into our system, and they're still trickling in as we speak.
GPS says this was the precise epicentre, right under Kevin Cannon's home at Douglas Park.
Now I understand why the explosion was at my house. Last night I believed it was an explosion in the mine and was waiting for some sort of a disaster.
Kevin reckons his land has subsided from mining, but scientists say connecting that with earthquakes is barking up the wrong tree.
This shed is where Kevin keeps his dogs, and he says they'd usually bark at almost any sound, but last night they didn't make a noise, probably because they were so scared.
And there could be aftershocks.
We can't say whether it's going to be any larger or smaller than what we've experienced so far, but it is certainly possible.
Let's hope nature lets sleeping dogs lie.
More now on our breaking news. You can see there on the screen an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.2 has struck southwest of Fiji. The US Geological Survey says the epicentre was 284 kilometres off the coast of Fiji and hit at 9:52 p.m. local time.
Now, a local tsunami warning has been issued. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Centre saying any threat from the waves will be isolated to Fiji's coastline. Any waves are likely to be small. Now, Geoscience Australia also estimates that the shaking or the tremors might have been felt in surrounding islands, including Tonga, Vanuatu and New Caledonia.
The Brits are warning their citizens of a possible chemical attack from ISIS. They're asking the public, come forward please with any information that you might have. Nigel Farage is with us. Nigel, we usually talk to you about Brexit and immigration, all the rest of it, but this time a chemical attack in Britain? This sounds really serious because the warning came from a senior official.
It did. It came from a government minister. What was interesting was about 4 years ago, I said that I felt we had a fifth column inside this country, people who've come here or even been born here and got British passports and yet are the enemy within. And that's exactly what this minister was saying, that we do have this presence within our country. We have to be vigilant. People have to come forward. And that particularly applies to people in the Muslim communities here in Britain. You know, if they hear or see of things that are dangerous or are going wrong, they need, in the interest of all of us, to tell the authorities. Now, to talk about the prospect of a dirty bomb has frightened some people, but goodness me, you know, we are up against an enemy here who have no moral boundaries whatsoever.
An Algerian terror suspect linked to Osama bin Laden has won a 21-year legal battle to live in the UK. It's the latest blow to the efforts of the Home Office to expel alleged foreign jihadists. The suspect is only referred to by the letter G. He's an Algerian national who applied for asylum in the UK in 1995 using a fake French passport. He's accused of supporting the Salafist group for Call and Combat, which has ties to Osama bin Laden. The Home Office also claims he's helped send young British Muslims to terror training camps abroad.
The government had been trying to get this man known as G deported back to Algeria. They'd refused to grant him residency here in the UK, and he'd lost appeals to stay in the country twice. But now a judge has said that G no longer poses a threat to national security here in the UK, and that limiting his right to live in the UK has affected his mental health. And this isn't a unique case. Just a few weeks ago here, there was a similar story. B claimed asylum back in 1993 and over the years was deemed a threat to national security not once, but twice. And yet still, his lawyers were able to use the European Convention on Human Rights to argue that he would be tortured if he went back to his homeland of Algeria. And in December, the same court that granted asylum to G, the Special Immigration Appeals Court, rejected the Home Office's attempt to deport him.
With ISIS claiming responsibility for the New Year's Eve massacre at an Istanbul nightclub, experts claim that the relationship between ISIS and Turkey has shifted from an uneasy peace to an all-out war. According to the terror group, the rampage was carried out in response to a call from its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Michael Horowitz, Director of Intelligence at Middle East-based political risk consultancy PrimeSource, suggested that Sunday's attack signaled that ISIS feels it can operate more openly on Turkish soil.
An annotated edition of Mein Kampf has become a nonfiction bestseller in Germany. The book is Adolf Hitler's notorious manifesto. According to news agency DPA, 85,000 copies of the book have been sold since it was first published a year ago. The book is 1,948 pages and entitled Hitler, Mein Kampf, a Critical Edition. It's published by the Munich-based Institute for Contemporary History.
Finland is now the first European country to give a basic income to some of its unemployed citizens. As part of a 2-year trial program, its government is giving 2,000 people who have been receiving unemployment benefits about $580 a month each tax-free. The goal of the experiment is to see if giving a basic income to those without jobs boosts employment. Other countries like Scotland and Canada are also looking into the option of a basic income. And a large trial already began in Kenya. A charity raised millions of dollars to give a basic income to more than 6,000 people for up to 12 years. Finland's experiment will end in December 2018. About 213,000 people there are currently unemployed.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did something really unexpected before the end of the year. He approved 2 controversial oil pipeline projects. However, as expected, there has been quite a bit of backlash towards his decision, and Canadian First Nations chiefs are spearheading the fight. Canadian First Nations people are essentially following suit with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe against DAPL with the Enbridge Line 3 pipeline project. What's the latest there?
Well, we heard from Derek Nipanak. He is the Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, and his group has commissioned their law team to have a federal lawsuit against an appeal against Line 3, which is an Enbridge pipeline that goes from Alberta through Saskatchewan to Manitoba and down to Minnesota and Wisconsin. So this would be about a 1,000-mile pipeline that is actually built in place of an older pipeline that would be decommissioned and buried. Now, this new pipeline, you're looking at more than, or almost doubling, I should say, the amount of oil that would be heading from Alberta down to the tip of Lake Superior there on the west side. We're going up from 390,000 to 780,000 barrels. Now, even Enbridge has admitted that this is going to have a huge carbon footprint. In fact, they've said that 19 to 26 megatons of greenhouse emissions will be, or an increase of that much. Megatons, 19 to 26 megatons on an annual basis. So even Enbridge is saying that, you know, this is a big deal. Now, that emission itself comes from the production of this fuel from the tar sands, and then it's shipped down the pipelines, and then it comes into the United States. And this is where you get into mucky waters, because we're talking about the tip of Lake Superior there, and we know that Enbridge has had some pipelines in the past around the Lake Huron and Lake Michigan area that are very controversial. Built in 1953, actually, one of these pipelines, it would not be in any way, shape, or form be allowed to happen today. And this pipeline is deteriorating quickly. Is it in use? Is it not? That's really something that we're not really 100% sure of right now. But we do know that it's a controversial pipeline that is around the Mackinac Island area up there in Lake Huron, close to Lake Superior.
Water protectors continue to demonstrate against the plans to pass the Dakota Access Pipeline near the Standing Rock Indian Reservation, despite harsh weather and standoffs with law enforcement. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum has warned in his State of State address in Bismarck that historic snowfall near the Cannonball River will likely flood the campsites in March. A supporter of the pipeline, Governor Burgum is urging protesters to vacate their main camp before spring because of the potential danger. The Standing Rock Sioux, whose land is near the pipeline, asked the protesters to leave. Most of them did, however, some have remained despite the harsh winter conditions and the threat of flooding.
Despite China's claims of making efforts to reduce its air pollution levels, heavy smog alerts have been issued for the northern regions there. The air was so toxic in some places, it even pushed area residents to spend their New Year's holidays someplace far from home.
With the smog in the northern parts of China getting worse by the day, a smog alert has been issued in over 60 cities, and a huge number of residents spent their New Year's away from the area. According to China's Environmental Protection Ministry, red alerts have been issued for 24 cities. That's the highest level in China's 4-tier pollution warning system, and at that level, factories, schools, and construction sites are closed. On top of that, the next alert levels of orange and yellow have been issued for 37 cities, including the capital of Beijing.
Nobody likes smog. Smog has negative effects on people's emotions, and we're all feeling very bad about this.
I feel so depressed. I have a child, but I can only keep him at home, and he can't even go out to get any sunshine. This really worries me.
Well, it seems that the world's most infamous cryptocurrency is experiencing more than just a solid day or two in trading. As of Tuesday, Bitcoin was trading at a high of $1,029, according to the official data from CoinDesk. The news comes shortly after we learned it soared to $963 just last week, after a very long period of volatility. In fact, the last time Bitcoin even reached 1,000 was in 2013. So it's left all of the Bitcoin skeptics out there stunned, making them wonder what could possibly be behind the rise. But there's a couple of possible answers here. Take China for the first one. The renminbi, which is the country's official currency, fell 7% in 2016. Meanwhile, Bitcoin rose by 125%. Since most Bitcoin trading takes place in China, it makes sense that a growing portion of the population there would turn to Bitcoin. At this point, it would take another major scandal like Mt. Gox to take Bitcoin down. But as far as we know for now, the exchanges have learned their lesson.
No, hurry! The garbage truck is here!
There it is! I found it with my binoculars!
Wave! See if you can get him to wave.
Thursdays we wait for this street.
They're waving!
We wait and we look for them. For us, it makes our day.
It couldn't warm anybody's heart seeing those girls wave.
And I wrote a little note, not intending it for it to be anything.
Always keep it on me. When I'm having a bad day, I just look at this and read it. We may miss you some Thursdays. Upcoming, our 3-year-old girl was diagnosed with cancer and has chemo on Thursdays.
How's that?
Good job.
You too.
I have 3 kids of my own. I could never imagine it.
She doesn't have to be alone, and the family doesn't have to be alone either.
Our teammates, Brandon and Taylor, filled us in on the situation and shared the very kind note that you left for them. We were so proud that their gestures gave you a reason to smile recently. Please accept our gift of free garbage service for you through the end of 2017.
Sometimes it's hard to be positive, but little things like what Hometown did are helping us limp along.
We got this one for you, Grace.
Sophia, it's yours.
Rose.
Oh my! Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you guys. We miss them when they're gone, but we make up for it when they're back.
That's hard to put words to it, and thank you seems so insufficient.